really when I started focusing on the baby steps. I wasn't even thinking about the outcome. I wasn't thinking about when is my skin going to look
Yeah.
clear? How is it going to look when it does? I stopped thinking about that. And I just got into like the little tiny little baby steps. And once I really started focusing and I was consistent, that's when I saw changes, right? Here's an outcome that I didn't even expect. That's like my skin and additional things on top of my skin, right? So
Today, I am very excited to be sitting here with Minnie. And I'm going to start at the very beginning of when we first started,
yeah,
because I think this resonates with a lot of people. But Minnie was very much so an overthinker and overanalyzer. And okay, I need to think about this. I need to be doing this first. And this is I say this just because it's very common with a lot of people with eczema. And I talk a lot about the different eczema personalities because after working with so many people, there's similar things that keep coming up. And it's just that overthinking, always saying yes, and maybe not having as good of boundaries with yourself that comes up again and again. And so that almost stopped Minnie from going on this journey. And then I said, all right, here's some homework. Let's chat again in a few weeks. And then Minnie did something that wasn't in her normal nature, and she did something different. So before we jump into that, let's just rewind. Well, firstly, welcome. Thanks for having a chat today. But let's rewind and chat about your journey with your skin before starting the program and what that looked like for you.
okay. So just like a lot of people, I've watched a lot of interviews and it's funny how there's so many, as you said, so there's so many commonalities, right? So it was when I was a kid, I had the usual rashes on the inside of my arms. I was itchy all over. I got them on my forehead. So if there was particular places where I was just always itchy, I had rashes. And that was from when I was a child. And so then years went by, and then as years went by, I even had it all over my legs. Like it was pretty much all over, I would say, when I was a child. And as years went by, I ended up going to see a dermatologist. And I can't remember, maybe I was so young that I can't remember. Maybe that was a parent decision because it was so long ago. So I would see dermatologists and they would give me the creams and all of that stuff. And yeah, okay, the rash would seem to go away or it would relieve the itching for moments, but then I'd still find myself just using creams and more creams or new creams. And as I got older, so then I actually felt like there was a phase when it kind of wasn't bothering me. I didn't have as many rashes. And when I got older, I remember I would say it came back in my closer to my late 20s. And I started getting so I never grew up having like acne or anything like that on my face. So all of a sudden the late 20s came and I was getting tiny little bumps on my face. And I was like, oh my gosh, like I'm an adult and I'm not supposed to get acne and I never had this before. And what's going on? And so I thought, okay, you know what? I've been going to see dermatologists for many years and I realized they are not really fixing the issue. It's just surface stuff, right? So I said, I need to really find a way to just kind of heal and fix this and make sure it doesn't happen again. And so I went to see a naturopath. And that first in total, I did see like about 3 naturopaths. I will say the first one, I felt they helped me in the sense of they told me to take, the regular stuff like the fish oil or the vitamin D, right? And so at that time, was like, okay, yeah, I'll do that. And I did. And then I noticed a difference and I was like, oh, my skin is clearer. Maybe this was the answer. And then, of course, it wasn't the answer. And I went to another naturopath and they started doing the same stuff and they, gave me certain supplements. And then it was a third naturopath. I had a few appointments with her. And then I thought, okay, this isn't really helping. And I think one of the things that stood out was I was seeing people who they never experienced what I was experiencing, right? And it just, no matter how much they were trying to help, it felt like even though it was in their field and they were trying to get to the root cause and all of that stuff because they're naturopaths, they're not dermatologists. It was just like, I just kept getting this feeling that they don't know exactly what the problem is. And they're just kind of just throwing things at me and, just trial and error. And let's just see if this one works. Okay, that didn't work. Let me just throw this one, right? Randomly. So anyways, that was the history of it. And then, I guess based on algorithm and social media, I came across your video and I was like, gosh, like like, is this real right now? Like it was just everything you were saying was like, oh my gosh, like she sounds like she knows what she's talking about. She's actually experienced this herself, which I've that I never came across that before, right? So then I thought, okay, let me reach out. And I actually, it was Megan who I think I reached out to. I don't know how or I reached out to you on Instagram, and then somehow I was connected to Megan as well. And then I had my first call with you. And it's funny you brought that up because before this call, I was like, I wonder, because you have so many clients, I'm like, I wonder if she remembers having the initial call with me and me like overthinking and saying that I don't know, I don't think I can do it. Yeah, so clearly you remembered. So yes, we
Yeah.
had our first call. You asked me questions and stuff, and yes, I would. My hesitation wasn't even. It had nothing to do with you exactly. It was more like it was literally me overthinking. It was an investment, and it was like, okay, I have to speak to I'm the type of person in the past, and I'll say in the past, prior to joining the program and making this decision, that I always, for whatever reason, I always spoke to other people, I'm really close with my family, really close with my friends. Like I have a small circle of really close friends. So I would always speak to them about everything when I'm trying to make a decision about something. And I
Yeah.
did the same thing, right? And I spoke to family, I spoke to friends, I spoke to my parents. And of course, I was getting are you sure? I don't know. Like it's online and, you're not going to see and it was all that stuff, right? But I will say my husband, though, was like, I don't remember it could have been that initial reaction, but I know he was the one person who was like, you know what? This is on you. Like if you feel this is right for you, I support you 100%. Right. And so as I was hearing back from like my parents or my friends, I was like, okay, wait a minute. I stopped. I remember just stopping and thinking, why do I care what they think? None of them have experienced eczema. Like they've never had it. Maybe my
Yeah.
dad, but my dad's very quiet. So I don't even think he really had an opinion because he's the type of person that will say, do what you want to do. Right. So, but my mom's a different person. But anyway, so none of these people have experienced what I've experienced. They really don't know. And I mean, they're, yeah, friends, family, but why do I care? Like, I had this gut feeling,
Yeah.
and I was just like, you know what? I'm just going to go with it. I'm just going to go with
Yeah.
it. And this is not me, the usual typical me, but I'm just going to go with it. And I did. And I mean, there's so much more to talk about, but I made one of the best decisions of my life.
Oh, that's so sweet. Yeah, I'm very similar to where if I make a decision, I'll speak to all my friends. And exactly what you said, it's if somebody hasn't experienced eczema, it's hard for them to understand because they're going to say, Mitty, you're beautiful. And your skin isn't like, I never noticed that. So, like, it's
Yeah.
not a problem. Like, it's not something, but then when you look in the mirror and you're thinking about it every day, it's a weight on your shoulders.
Yeah.
And especially when you've already invested energy and it's something that you're proactively thinking about and searching because that came
Yeah.
up.
Exactly.
They don't realize that it does take a lot of brain power. And it is a big weight on your shoulders. And also, there's so many things that it affects, like your confidence and, that flow on effects. So,
Yeah,
yeah.
and that's the thing. Like it was like you said, like, and you mentioned it earlier. Like I've realized, and maybe I didn't realize at the time, but it was realizing when I joined and during the program that, oh my gosh, I am a people pleaser. Like I never really looked at it that way, but it's like, I do things for other people or to make other people happy, and I just put whatever I'm feeling or want or to the side and try to take care of everybody else, and it's just like that was the first time where I was like, okay, first of all, I felt like something was wrong. Like overall, like my skin and just like mentally, physically, like I just felt overall something was wrong. I was just off track. Something didn't feel right. And then just seeing your videos and hearing you speak. And I've always believed everything happens for a reason. And I know, yes, there's the algorithm, but then there's also this happened. I saw that video. I saw it now and I saw it at the right time. And you know what I mean? So like, I totally believe in all of that stuff. And that's when I was just like, you know what? Like, I gotta just do something for myself. And I don't usually
Yeah.
do it. And this is the time for me to just do it and focus on myself because I did feel like even just with my family, my husband, my daughter, she's 5.5, and she corrects me, 5.5. And I just felt like, I was dealing with like the irritability, like all of that stuff. And I
Yeah.
just didn't feel myself, right? And I thought, you know what, the only, like, I have to take care of myself, because the only way I'm going to feel like I can take care of my family, take care of my daughter, or be, a good wife and a good mom is I got to put myself first. And I did that.
Yeah.
And, there's just so many things that came out of that.
Great. Because that's the big thing that I always talk about is that it's not just your skin. There's going to be multiple things happening. So for you, we've identified that brain skin
Yeah.
connection already. And yeah, it has flow on effects. And I do remember speaking to you at the beginning, and it was about the irritability, noticing that there was a shift in the way that you're feeling and the way that you're showing up with your family. And for you, that was really important. So it's always good to, and like, that's why we do have those long conversations too, because it's a motivating factor. It's like, okay, well, oh, it's my skin. If you just boil it down to that thing, you're like, okay, well, it's not that big of a deal. But when you actually break it down and you're like, well, it's affecting my relationships.
Yeah.
And I know that I felt different. And for a lot of people, they're like, oh, it's just aging. That's what happens when you get older. It's not. Yeah.
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 Definitely not.
Yeah. Yeah. So, how was that affecting you day to day, just with your skin, the irritability? Yeah, how was that affecting you day
Yeah,
to day?
so it was just like like on almost on a daily or weekly, like it was just with my family, my husband, my daughter, or even my parents, or whoever was close to me, or it just would feel like I was snapping, or and it was just like it just affected overall relationships, and I didn't want to, and even just skin wise, like just physically, right? So like going back to even when I was a child, it's like you feel like you just want to hide from the world. I remember recently when I was in like elementary school, and I remember trying to use this cream, and I used it on my neck. I don't even know why, I can't remember why, but it gave me this big rash, right? And then I remember, there was this boy I like, or maybe he was even my boyfriend at the time. And then there was this girl that was like jealous of me, that was like, oh, you really like her? She has a big rash on her neck. You know what I mean? Like, so those, yeah. And I remember that recently. And I was like, just those things that, like, you just
Yeah.
like, and you feel like you're so out of control with it, and where it's like, oh my gosh, like I have to live, like, I thought I had to live with this for the rest of my life. I knew my dad had it, and I thought, okay, well, this is just genetics. This is hereditary. Like, there's no cure to eczema. Like, that's all I thought through my life. And like, I mean, there was quite like a period of me not really having to deal with the rashes. But then it's like when it came back, it was like, oh my gosh, like now this is weird. Now I feel like I have acne. And even when the naturopath said, oh, this is a form of eczema, I was like, no, are you sure? Like, I know what eczema is, and I know what it looks like, And I was like, I don't, in my head, I was like, I don't think you know what you're talking about. But then, yeah, I guess it comes in different forms. And it just was like, wow, it's coming back to haunt me. And then again, that's, of course, it's almost like it was confirmed again that I am going to have to deal with this for the rest of my life, right? And then you think of, okay, you look at your calendar and you're like, oh my gosh, like my skin is like so bad right now. Like, this is coming
Yeah.
up, and this is coming up, and you think, oh my gosh, what excuse am I going to use to not have to go to that event and stuff like that, right? And it's not a good feeling. And I mean, sometimes I
Yeah.
would just be like, whatever, like you said, like some people would be like, what are you talking? Like, I don't even notice, or it's not
Yeah.
that bad, and it's just like, you have no idea what you're talking about. It is, and
Yeah.
I'm the one dealing with it, and I've been dealing with it for this amount of time, and all of that stuff. But yeah, but realizing that, like realizing all the other things that are, the underlying cause, like just the brain skins, like the stress and all of that stuff. I had no clue. It didn't even cross my mind. That's what it could be. And I know I've watched like, interviews of people with eczema who had, and some of them already knew. And I'm like, how did I didn't know this. Like, how did I completely miss that? But anyways, I've learned so much. So yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, it is very common for, well, people to not know that stress is a thing because you usually just think, okay, it's a cream that I'm using, or maybe you're thinking it's a food, but not many people will identify that stress aspect. And then what you had said about canceling plans, I totally remember that also. And when I was in my mid 20s, all my friends were on a boat and I was living in Manly, and I think they were even docking around Manly, and I could literally see and hear them. And I just remember thinking, and I'm like, My excuse was I'm staying home to study. And I remember thinking, I'm just like, what? This is like my prime years, and I'm making excuses. And again, my friends like didn't even realize the extent of my eczema because I would just cancel
Yeah.
plans. And also, you just become really good at hiding it.
Mhm.
And for them, it's not a big deal, but the impact that it has on yourself to not be doing things, especially when you're social
Yeah.
and you want to be doing the things, it is really hard.
Yeah. And it's almost like it sucks. Like it's almost like you become a liar too, right? Because you're like, oh,
Mm.
actually, I have to do this that day. And right. And it's just like, oh my gosh, you're not even being true to others, to yourself. Like it's just, it's not a good feeling at all,
Yeah.
fortunately.
Yeah. Okay, so let's have a chat about the turning point for you. So you tried some things, you'd seen a naturopath and they gave you just the generic advice, which is very common. Most people will have either Googled that or they would have been given that information, and they can be helpful. And I mean, there are things that like we'll use in the program, but there's so much more to it. So what was the turning point and what was different for you?
Right. So I think so once I realized, so I joined the calls, and then, there's the call with Mandy. And then, well, I think first off, I should say, so when I would join the calls, like with the group call, because a lot of people I find also like food is a factor, right? And then I thought, okay, yeah, for me, like the dairy, I noticed, right? Like specifically cheddar cheese. But for me, I was like, during the program, I was like, okay, well, I'm eating these things, but I don't feel like it's food for me, right? So that was another thing where I'm like, oh gosh, I'm like one of the like few maybe where it's like food isn't So I'm like, okay, maybe this isn't. Anyway, so I continue listening to the calls, and then it's like, oh, okay, the stress is key. And then I don't know when, but somehow during the program, I remembered, wait a minute, when this came back in my late 20s, like 29, say, I remembered I was planning for my wedding. And I was
Yeah.
like, okay, okay. And I was like piecing everything together, right? So it's just listening and realizing, wait a minute, okay, there's the stress factor, there's the gut healing, right? And because well, we both know my consumption with certain things isn't the greatest. So I was like, wait a minute, I never, like, I didn't connect that part of it either. But anyway, so I would join the calls and stuff. And then then we would talk about, daily routines. And I was like, okay, let me try this out. And so I started trying different things. And I'm more like, I would say, it's funny, I would say I'm more of a night person, but now I've started doing things more in the morning where I thought this would never ever happen. Okay. And so during the program, I got into like setting time aside when everybody would go to bed and just, whether it was reading or meditating or, yeah, journaling and stuff. Right. And so it's like there's so many things that I felt like I started during the program that I said for years that I got to get into this. I got to do this. Like meditation is definitely one. I just talk. Oh, I got to do this. But I would never sit down and actually try it. Right.
Yeah.
And so I started doing all this, I started getting into this daily routine, and I was getting into it, and I was like, oh my gosh, like this feels good. Like this feels like I'm focusing on myself. And as time went by, I started, even with the meditation, I tried this tapping meditation. And I remember sitting on the couch, and I just have to play this part back. So I remember being on one of the calls, and Mandy spoke about a time when she was like, I think basically I think it was one of her aha moments, right? And she was doing like a breathing exercise. And just the way she spoke about it, she was like, oh my gosh, I think I'm onto something. And hearing her, I was like, oh my gosh, like I want to feel that, I want to get that. I want to get there. And I did. I was sitting on the couch. I remember in the night, and this was when it was probably a week of like bad skin. It felt like my skin was getting worse, I guess, because I was stressing and trying too much at once. And I had the rashes on my forehead, on my arms, and I was sitting and around my eyes, it was dry, crusty, and peeling. And I was sitting
Yeah.
on the couch. I did the tapping meditation, and I kid you not, I walked. It was weird. And I know this probably doesn't usually happen, but I walked to the mirror, and this was like a 10-minute, maybe less tapping meditation, but I walked to the mirror and I looked at my face, and I literally saw that my face cleared. And I was like, I had to like look so many times because I was like, I feel like I'm seeing things. But that was like that turning point where I was like, oh my gosh, like I'm onto something now. I found what works for me. And not to say it's just one thing. Like I had to, work, like I had to try things, see what I was into, what I could continue daily and not feel like it's a chore or a task. Like it was just something that it was for me and and I looked forward to doing it. But yeah,
Yeah.
I have to say making those changes, that's what really helped me. And that's when I started seeing the difference. And I was like, okay, I just got to focus on this stuff.
Yeah. That's so great. And the thing is that everybody also knows, okay, I need to be focusing on my sleep. I know that I shouldn't be stressing as much. I know that I shouldn't be eating as much sugar. But exactly like you said, like I can do that to myself. I can talk up a big game. Like, what are you actually doing every day? Yeah.
Right? Like you can talk and
Yeah.
talk, and it's like, okay, yeah, like years are gonna go by, which is exactly what happened to
Yeah.
me, right? And it's overall like, and I have to say, like when we first spoke, and I could have been the first conversation we had, but when you spoke about the program and you said it's a lifestyle change, it's almost like it scared me in the sense of, wait a
Yeah.
minute, and that also would have had to do with like why I was hesitant. Cause I'm like, I was making excuses, like the overthinking, making like so many excuses of, oh my gosh, I can't invest in this and I can't commit to this. And, maybe it's just not the right time for me and all of that stuff.
Yeah.
Right. And it's just like you hear that and you're like, wait a minute, I'm not ready to change my life. I'm not ready for a lifestyle change. I just want to fix my skin. Like that's not all I want to do. Right. But as
Yeah.
you like, then I joined the program. And as time went by during the program, I was like, okay, this is what she meant. Like this is exactly it's
Yeah.
like it is literally a lifestyle change. And it's
Yeah.
yeah, it's just like it's almost like even though you said it, like as much as it scared me at the same time, it's almost like it didn't click that I was gonna join and so many other things would improve. And that's what happened. Like my skin, like I've never seen my skin look like this since like I'm going to be like 40 next year. So like 10 years ago, right? For 10 years, I have not seen clear skin like this. But then there's so many other things that I'm like, oh my gosh, like just because I got into like the day, like consistency, that was always my struggle. But somehow I was like, okay, if I'm putting in so much work here and here, like let me just go with it. And I saw a difference just working out wise, because I was so consistent. And even with the sugar, like yeah, I fall into those traps, but like I went through the periods of not having the sugar, right? And I saw what a difference it made. And it was like, well, okay, this was my answer. And even as much as you hear it, you don't believe it until you see it, right? So yeah, there's just so many things where it's like, wow, like this was just an all around overall lifestyle improvement, right? Like it's improved my life overall for sure.
Yeah. And so what are some of the changes that you've
Yeah,
noticed?
so basically, so I'll say, so just when it goes back to like the eating and the exercising, like I'll say that I remember, and this was during the program, like I remembered I had really close friends, so I shouldn't really even feel this way, but we were getting together at a hotel and we were going to go to the pool, right? And so I always know and have enough time when I know I'm going to go on vacation like months from now. So I'm like, oh, okay, I gotta,
Yeah.
I did whatever I wanted to do, but now I got to get into vacation mode and start exercising and eating properly, right? But that time,
Yeah.
because I was in the program, I was already doing what I should be doing like all the time and daily. So it was like the first time I felt like, oh my gosh, I didn't have, like, I was in a swimsuit and I was like, oh my gosh, I feel so confident. Like, I just, it wasn't a usual feeling because I always felt like, then you feel the stress of, oh my gosh, I have to go on vacation in a month and I have to do this, right? I didn't feel that because I was already doing all that stuff. So I was like eating.
Yeah.
And when I say eating, it was better because I still had to, had more time to improve, but even like the alcohol. So I had a lot of like many periods of having a break with the alcohol, even though I should have been not doing, I know you're not really supposed to while you're doing all the other stuff on the program, but I went through breaks and I thought, oh, okay, I can actually do this. And I'll say like, because I had, I guess the breaks like last year, I haven't had alcohol since December 31st, since New Year's Eve.
Oh,
Yeah,
wow.
not one
Yeah.
drink. And what's so, and I don't honestly, I'll be honest, like I don't miss it because I also felt like that was just making me feel tired and just, the irritability and all
Yeah.
of that, just the relationship stuff, right? Or the mom stuff. It was just like, okay, this isn't good for me. So I went, I haven't had a drink for that long and I don't miss it. And I think what's even more, bigger than that is that we went to on vacation in March. We went to St. Lucia, so that was the first vacation that I went on that I didn't have a drink. I had pina coladas and they were virgin pina coladas and I loved them. I was like, this actually tastes really good. And then like even going out or going to a club, like I went to a club like, I don't know, a month ago because my brother-in-law was in town and I didn't have a drink and I was totally fine. And it's like sometimes, you think, oh, you're gonna feel that pressure from other people. But I was like, this is all about
Yeah.
me now. Like I feel like a different person because it's like now this is all about me. If I'm not gonna drink for myself, I'm not gonna drink for you. You know what I
Yeah.
mean? Like I'm not gonna do it. Like, and I haven't done it for so long, and it's just like, no, sorry. And it's actually easy to say no, which is a good feeling, right? Because sometimes you do feel the
Yeah.
pressure, and it's like I just feel like I'm in such a good state in that sense. So yeah, and just going back to what I said about, so I never thought of myself as a morning person. So something I always told myself, oh, I'm like, because I hear all people say, oh, I exercise in the morning or I meditate in the morning, right? I was doing all that stuff either on a lunch break or in the evening. And recently I'm like, let me just do it. Let me just set my alarm earlier. Let me just do it. Let me not hit the snooze button. As soon as I hear the alarm, just get myself up. And I started doing that. And I'll tell you, like, I'm starting with like 15 minutes of like the meditation. So it's very small. Like, I'm definitely starting small, but
Which
even
is
the,
perfect.
yeah,
Yeah.
right. Even the exercising, it's like 10 to 15 minutes, but I'm like, let me just focus on, like just starting small and then I could increase when I feel comfortable. But I've been doing that in the morning and I've realized like it just sets you up for
It's so much
it's
better.
so
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 much better.
much better, right? So
Yeah.
it sets up your whole
Yeah.
day, right? So yeah, so there's
Yeah.
things like that where I kept telling myself for years, I'm gonna do this or I want to do this, and it was the talk, right? But I
Yeah.
finally have put those things into place, and it's like I'm reaping the benefits.
I'm glad that you shared that with us because it is daunting when you say changing your lifestyle because you're like, but I like my life. I
Mhm.
like going out and having a drink. I like that social part of it. I like having munchies at nighttime. I like doing all these things. So if somebody's like, I'm going to take all these things that you get enjoyment away from you, you're like, well, hang on, why am I paying
Yeah.
for that? Like, yeah. Yeah.
Yes.
And the thing is, the disclaimer is that the aim is to get to that 80-20 balance. So there's a balance of, yeah, nourishing your body and then also being able to have it. So if you are going away or on the weekend if you want
Yeah.
to, but when you're in a really inflamed state, avoiding it is good while you're doing the work healing. But yeah, the thing is that people want the end goal of healing their skin, but they don't want to make the
Yeah.
changes. And then what you realize in the program is, oh, all of the way that I was living my life led to having skin that's flared up and inflamed.
Exactly.
Yeah. And like similar to you, if somebody told me like 10 years ago, like if you want to heal your skin, you'll have like you don't have to stop drinking, but like you'll stop drinking. I would have never believed that because I thought I'd be drinking. I'd be the old lady with a bottle of wine on her doorstep. Like I would have put like every single penny in my bank
Yeah.
account. I would have bet that.
Exactly, right? Like I'd be like, that's not happening, Like I don't see it. And especially just being around people, like even just my husband, like he likes to drink. And it's just I thought, how can that happen? Like I live with somebody who likes to drink and we have fun. And but now it's like I
Yeah.
can easily just be like, no. And like, maybe one day or, if I do go out, maybe I'll have a drink. But right now I'm so not interested. I'm totally fine without it. And it's just like, but yeah, it's just, I'm making these decisions or doing things where I thought, yeah, never would ever happen,
Yeah.
even the morning stuff, never. Like I love my
Yeah.
sleep and yeah, I could have bet money on that for sure.
Yeah. And the thing is that it's not just about the skin, it's because you actually feel better.
Yes.
And like waking up and exercising in the morning is like you said, it sets your day
Yeah.
up. And I definitely notice like a difference in my mood, my energy levels, productivity, all of that.
Exactly. Exactly. Right. And so
Yeah.
and it comes back to like one of the main things that I told you with in just my family and how I was acting with my family. That's changed tremendously. Right. And if I
Yeah.
do catch myself on a day where I'm like, oh, I feel like that irritable feeling again, it's like, I just the way I manage it, like I try to just block it out, or I just, I catch myself, and I just something
Yeah.
that I say doesn't come out as bad as it would have before, right? Like I could just catch myself before I say anything. And it's just, yeah, it's just a nice feeling just to know that it's like, oh my gosh, like I've made so many changes, and I see how it's affecting my relationships in a positive way, of course, right?
That's great. That's really good. Yeah. And it takes time too. And that's the bonus of the program because like there are all these changes and exactly like you said, you pick and choose what works for you. So there's like different types of mindfulness, there's breath work, and then there's tapping. I remember, I think that was Peter that was talking a
Yeah.
lot about tapping
Yeah.
in the program.
Yeah.
Yeah. And that's a good thing about being in the group calls too, because you connect with other people, you follow their journeys, you see what works, and it gives you motivation to try things, just exactly like with Mandy too, because it is common across the board for, especially when people have eczema or rashes or inflammation on their face, for when they get stressed, for that to get
Yeah.
inflamed. And so many members have commented that when they do breath work, they can actually see a change in the color of their face and the inflammation.
Yeah,
So
like it's a
yeah,
and I,
it just
yes, not to forget the breath work, because even and I know that just though at that time that I did do the tapping, I was doing like the deep breathing while I was doing it as well. And so yeah, I can't forget the breath work, because that's also key for me. Where like I used to try to do it before as well, where it would I feel like it would calm me down, but I definitely started doing it like daily, or like even just randomly throughout the day. I still do, right? Because that yeah, that's another key one. I don't know how I forgot that one, but yeah, that's definitely key for sure.
yeah. 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 And the key with all of this is that consistency. So it is, and that's the good thing about the program is that you're around people that are doing it and you have that motivation as
Yeah.
well. Because whenever I've invested in anything versus if I just get something for free, I know my output's completely
Yeah,
different.
exactly. Right. And
Yeah.
that's the thing. Like, it's just, you're like, okay, you committed to this. Like, so just go with it.
Yeah.
Like, go in 100%. And that's what I've learned so much about myself too. Like, even just going back to like that, like, I've noticed that I'm all in or out. And it's like what, like the eating or the drinking or whatever it is. If I'm gonna drink, I'm gonna drink. I'm gonna be all in there. So it's
I
almost
see
like
that the pattern.
so it's almost like it only kind of worked where I was just like, you know what? I think I'm done with this. So yeah, it's like it's all or nothing kind of thing. But you
Yeah.
learn so much. You learn so much about yourself. And
Yeah.
it's just funny how like the things that like help heal you and all of that, like it's literally right under your nose, right? Like it's just like it's right there. Like we have so much control. Like you think we all
Yeah.
feel like we're out of control completely. It's out of our control and we have to deal with it. But you realize how much control you actually have. And it's amazing.
Yes. And well done for putting that work in because, yeah, it is about noticing what comes up for you. So, all of those big aha moments was because you were doing the reflections, you were showing up on the calls, and you were doing that work. And that it's the best turning point just in like the journey of life is realizing that you have control of things. And because the thing is that you're not always going to have control over what
Yeah,
happens, right? COVID, all of that, but we can control our reaction to
exactly.
it. And the things that we do day to day
Yeah,
is going to help with that in terms of the consistency and like the way that we experience it because you are the state of your nervous system. So you can, when you're irritable, that's your experience of life versus when you're doing all these things and you're doing the lifestyle changes, which there can be a resistance, but that's going to change your experience of
yeah,
life. So if it's not a good experience now, you do have the power to change
yeah.
that, which sounds cheesy,
But
but
it's
it's
true.
true.
Exactly. It's so true.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, and that's freedom. Like that's when you find freedom from your rashes, just freedom from all these constraints that we put around ourselves, which is pretty cool.
Yeah. Yeah. And it's like I said, like, I mean, so you get into the state of like, oh my gosh, like I have good skin and I feel good. And then, when those days come where it's like, oh, it's not the great day. It's not a great skin day, but you don't feel as low. And you're just like, you know
Yeah.
what? I came out of this. Like I came out of like a worse situation. So I could get out of this. Right. And you just see the difference and you're just like, okay, this is just a day. It's just a day. Let's just get past this one and get back to it. So
Yeah.
nice.
And that's the perfect example of regulating your nervous system. So before going from 0 to 100
Yep.
and freaking out, okay, what's going on? I need to do this. I have anxiety, and that makes my skin worse. And then I'm irritable. Whereas you're like, okay, I'm noticing that I'm getting a skin reaction. And what you were saying before, oh, I could piece together what
Yeah.
happened and what was causing that, which is just such a good peace of
Yeah.
mind. And then you're like, okay, I know what's happening. It's okay. And then, because you also have the confidence when you see your skin flare up, you're in the program, you see it heal. So you're like, okay, I know that I'll be able to get it again. So that responding versus reacting is such a big picture. And being able to regulate your system so you don't go from 0 to 100. You're in that high activation state all
Yeah.
day, which is going to create more inflammation. There's just so many different cycles and snowballs that are happening all the time. But that's such a big piece as well to long-term
Yeah.
healing.
For sure.
Yeah. Yeah. Which is also because when did you finish the program officially? That was,
Officially, it was, I would say May. I want to say May.
oh, so a
Or
year
no,
ago
wait.
now.
So officially, like as
Oh,
in like so like okay, when I finished with the
yeah.
calls and stuff, you mean that? Yeah, so I
Yeah.
would say I feel like it was May.
Last
Yes,
year.
last year. Yeah. Yes.
Oh,
Yeah, I
wow.
feel like it was May.
Yeah.
Yeah. So yeah.
I wanted to say 6 months, but I'm like, Billy's 6 months
Yeah.
old. Yeah. I don't know where I've been
You've
in
been
baby
busy.
world.
Yeah, exactly. You've been busy.
Yeah.
You got your hands full.
Yeah, I've had lots on. Yeah, so it's good also to have a chat because you're a year from when you finish the program, and it's so great that you've been consistent. And of course, there's periods where you go on holidays, you enjoy yourself, but just having that
Yeah.
foundation, which is that like the biggest part of it, and like that's like the reason why I do this program is so people can change their life and have control over their eczema and still be able to do the things that they want to do. And if they do get a flare, I'd be like, oh, I actually had a really stressful period. Okay, what can I do to manage that? So it doesn't turn into a flare up all over your face
Yeah,
again.
exactly. And that's why, yeah. So when because it was like, yeah, I didn't realize it was a year. When you say a year, it's like, yeah, we are in May, right? So yeah, and
Mhm.
it's almost like last year was me like, getting into things and whether it's taking breaks of, the bad habits and stuff like, so that was almost setting me up for now this year. It was like, oh, I was able to do this and this without feeling pressured or feeling, you know what I mean? So it's almost, yeah, it's like that
Yeah.
set me up for just going with it and not feeling like, oh, okay, yeah, maybe I should cave or, like whatever it is. But it's just seeing, yeah, how all the benefits to it and just overall mentally, physically, emotionally, it's almost like it's certain things just not worth it. Right.
Yeah. Yeah. And the journey just keeps getting better.
Yeah,
Yeah.
exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly. And I love that, we always talk about it in the program. It's a journey, right? Because you're gonna have your
Yeah.
ups and downs. It's not like it's
Yeah.
not gonna look like that. So just kind of just go with it and know that, like understand that and just keep moving.
Yeah. Yeah. So what have you found to be some of the biggest triggers for your skin?
So the biggest triggers. So as I said, so like I said, food wasn't a big factor, but like for what, so I like cheddar cheese. I do like cheddar cheese. I'm okay to stay away from it, but I noticed like, oh my gosh, like that's a big one. But yeah, so it's really coming down to it is just when things maybe feel overwhelming. So one thing I do have to say is, and I say thanks to this program that I don't, this is another thing to add to the list of something I kept talking about and kept talking about. And I know I spoke about it in the program is I used to dance. I used to teach dance, and that was like my passion. And I even during the program, I thought, oh, maybe that's why my skin was doing so well because I was always dancing and it was my outlet, right? As
Mhm.
of May 1st, actually, yeah, this week was my second class. I started teaching again. I started teaching kids.
Oh,
Yes.
great.
And so,
Nice.
yeah, so it's amazing. It feels amazing. I finally did something that I said I wanted to do. I stopped the talk.
Yay.
Yeah, I want it. And so I'm doing that now. But what I will say is, so I think when I was getting everything set up, and I think what really helped me was that first week of me starting the whole early morning meditation and the exercise and setting my day up, that was that starting point of, okay, I'm just going to do this. I'm going to like start writing down everything that I want to do. I'm going to do it. I'm going to go book a spot, book a studio, rent space, get some kids that I knew. Like I knew there's so many kids on the street, and that's why I've been saying to myself, I want to do this. I want to do this. I have all these kids. And I finally did it. But I have to say, because I was doing so much more, and I will say it was a stressful period because I have my day job and then adding this, it was like, okay, and I need to get this done by May 1st, and because I don't want to delay it. That was stressing me out a bit. And then I noticed my skin, right? But then
Okay.
it's just like knowing that was a factor. It's just life changing again, right? Because it's like you
Yeah.
can pinpoint it. You know exactly what it is, and you know, okay, well, this is it's. I'm gonna feel like this. It's a new beginning, and it's gonna pass. So it's that stress. Like I know now, like if I get stressed about something or I feel overwhelmed or anything like that, like I may react. And if I do, I know how to manage that and I know it's going to pass. So I think that's a
Yeah.
big, like, that's why the brain skin series really stuck with me, because I think that was one of the main things for me in regards to my eczema.
Yeah. That's on point because these feelings and emotions, they pass. They
Yeah,
don't last. Yeah.
exactly.
And you can get so caught up in that feeling, but it will
Yeah.
pass within whatever, it's like 10, 15
Yeah.
seconds, unless you get caught in those loops.
Exactly. Yeah. And it's as much as
Yeah.
it's practicing, right? As much as you practice
Yeah.
that and get out of those loops, like it just becomes easier, right? So you don't have to think about it.
Yes. And that's like on point because everything that you're doing in the program, there's all these different changes and we have different tasks to focus on each week. And when you be like, this is like the greatest example of you start like a new activity or whatever it is, and you're consistent, then that daily task that you're doing just turns into unconscious
Yeah.
habit. And then it just happens in autopilot. So you don't have to consciously think
Right.
about it. And then everything just becomes easier. So it's like compound
Yeah.
interest, right? And we talk about the atomic habits, the one
Yeah.
percenters, and all
Yeah.
that
See,
stuff.
and I
Yeah.
read that book during the program.
Yeah. Yeah.
And I've been like,
Yeah,
even
that was a
like
good
during
one
the
too.
like I listen to podcasts all the time now. I never used to. I do it all the time. Like even now, like sometimes when I'm like, okay, my least favorite chore is cleaning the bathrooms. And so now when I clean the bathrooms, I just put my headphones on, I listen to the podcast so it doesn't feel like I'm doing a chore. And even sometimes when I'm cooking, like I'm just getting
Nice.
so much information, right? So it's like even that
Yeah.
snooze button. Like I listened to Mel Robbins, and so when I heard that, just don't hit it, don't touch it, just
Yeah.
5 4 3 2 1, get up, and I started doing it, and now I teach dance classes.
How good is that? I love
Yes, and
this.
the amazing part is I'm telling you, like it was like I would say maybe a month ago, right? So it's almost like just making that change in the morning for me, like it just like a big change happened so quickly,
Yeah.
right? So and maybe it's
Yeah.
because
And
I
see
kept
how it unfolds.
talking about it, but still, like it to put it into action, right? I felt like it happened so quickly.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. And this is like when you get to this point, this is when you can be grateful for having eczema. So it's
Yeah.
like, okay, that's what pushed me to make all these
Yes.
changes in my life.
Yeah. Yes.
Yeah.
And you just reminded me when you said that, like, I remember during the program when I did feel like I was like, oh my gosh, my skin's getting worse. I'm getting rashes on my arms. And I never used to get, like, I didn't get the rashes in years, right? It was more the bumps. And so when I started getting that,
Yeah.
I realized after, like, at the time, it was like, oh my gosh, like, what's going on? But then after, I was like, wait, this is happening for a reason. This is just like pushing me to just get right into it and just focus and be consistent, right? So, again, back to everything happens for a
Yeah.
reason. Totally believe that. So yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. And it's great too because for a lot of people, like if you're going through that process, there'll be a lot of parts coming up where it's like, okay, this is the wrong thing. You're not going to heal. I'm sure that there's, a big process like that, but you stuck with it. And again, it's that consistency. And it is listening to your body because your body's going to tell you what's working and
Yeah.
what's not, and that there's essentially
Yeah.
dysfunction. And there is more to look
Yeah,
at.
exactly. And then like even just watching like the interviews, right? Like those were like I said, like the glimmers in the LYS program, because it was just watching, because you see first, like you see people who like literally went through it, and it's like, okay, well if it
Yeah.
happened to them, it can happen to me. Like it's that
Yeah.
hopeful, like you're hopeful, right? And you see it's happened to people, and they went through the exact same thing, maybe worse, and they healed. So it's nice
Yeah.
to see those interviews for sure.
Yeah, because you can feel like you're the only one going through it, especially if you don't know anybody that has eczema, and it's not usually you don't really talk about it yourself. So there could be people that you know.
Yeah.
But yeah, it is nice to see other people going through the journey and that it is possible. And that like you were saying before, you for a lot of people, for a lot of well, they say that eczema will just go away, and it does for a lot of people. But then there's always a reason why it comes back.
Mhm.
Vengeance, usually in their 20s, during impactful moments, very stock standard. But there's a reason why. And it's like there's not a cure for eczema, it's about managing it. But there's so much that you can do if you just start listening to your body. If you start noticing your thoughts, if you start noticing the different symptoms, the reactions to food, to stress, to life, when you can take a step back and start noticing what's happening, it starts making sense. And you're like, oh, I
Yeah.
get it. Yeah.
Yeah, and even like, and you just, as you were talking again, like you're reminding me, like even the overthinking that I was doing, right? Like I feel maybe I do it a little bit now, but that's another thing where I was like, after making the decision to join and say, okay, I'm done with thinking about all this stuff. I noticed like different things like since then to now where I'm like, I'm done. I don't want to like the overthinking. Let's just go with it. If I want to do this, I'm going to go with
Yeah.
it. And if something goes wrong, then it goes wrong and I keep going,
Yeah.
like, so yeah.
Yeah. And that's the thing because with that overthinking, what you're doing is you're using your imagination and you're hypothesizing something that might happen. So you're creating that
Yeah.
stress response for something that doesn't even exist. Put so much energy into something that's not
Yeah.
even real.
Yes.
So when you actually think about it, you're like, that was a lot of energy wasted.
Exactly. Exactly. Yeah. Even those, yeah, all the
Yeah.
like whatever phone calls I had before doing it's like, oh my gosh, that was such a waste of time. Such a waste of time. And I'm never gonna do that ever again. And now I don't. Like I seriously don't. Like if I'm making a decision about something, I don't go to the people who I usually went to in the past. I'm just like, why? Like
Yeah.
I'm just gonna, do this. Like if I want to go this way or I want to go that way. And I'm gonna be the one to decide because I have to deal with whatever decision that is, right? And nobody else does. So
Yeah. And that comes from a level of trusting yourself and having confidence in yourself, which is
yeah.
awesome. So
Yeah.
well done.
Thank
Because it
you.
takes time. It takes time to get to that
Yeah.
point.
Yeah. So but yeah, once you experience it and you see the outcomes, it's like it becomes, I don't want to say easy, but it's just almost a little bit more natural, right? So it's just
Yeah.
not as hard to make decisions, I
Yeah.
guess.
Well, thank you for sharing that. Yeah, I like the part where you're like, that it was the one thing that changed everything when it was changing your morning routine. And that had the snowball effect of now teaching dance
Yes.
class to something that you wanted
Yeah.
to do and a passion. And that's the thing too, is that when you can step into the space of doing something that you're passionate about, connecting with other
Yeah.
kids and having that creativity, like that in itself is so healing for the body.
Exactly, right? And then and my daughter's in the class because she's dancing it, and yeah, yeah, she's.
Oh,
So I had put her in
yeah.
a dance studio to like teach like the ballet, like to get her ballet and whatever it is that she. And then so now she's like in my class and I'm teaching her, and it's
Oh,
so amazing, and just to watch how excited she is to like come with me to the studio. Like it's like she thinks it's her class, right? Like she's like, this is our
yeah.
class. And she even was like, can I be your assistant? And I'm like, okay, well you gotta be a student like with the rest of them, because she knows some of those kids too. And I'm like, I can't look like I'm favoring you. But it's like it's amazing.
Oh, that is so good. Yeah. That's so good. I love
Yeah,
that.
and even my husband, like it's like he's just so proud of me too. I think because he's known that, yeah, like I've wanted to do this for so long, and I was doing it before when I first met him, and and just just to even see like how proud he is, it's such a good. It
Yeah.
just adds to that feeling of like I've accomplished something, and I still have ways to go. Like I want to add more classes and all that stuff, right? But it's like I've started and that's key, right? It's like just starting something, like that's
Yeah.
one of the main things, right? And usually things
Yeah.
just kind of come into place if you're obviously working at it. So yeah. So that's also a nice feeling to just, see how proud he is of me for just doing it.
I love it. All right. Well, that has been a beautiful roller coaster for you of having eczema and not wanting to change your lifestyle, and then doing a complete 180, changing your lifestyle. And also, I mean, you did a lot of work too. So you did those daily rituals, but you did focus on your diet and doing the work, healing your gut as well. So there's a lot of other things that we're
Yeah.
working on also. But those daily rituals, and just that overthinking, noticing that, and reprogramming that was a
Yeah.
big thing. So well
Thank
done for all the
you.
work. You're welcome. And if there is somebody who is in that pattern of overthinking and they've tried going to naturopaths and they've tried taking some supplements and they're still struggling with their skin, what advice would you give them?
So I would say, so thinking about someone who's maybe considering joining the program, so like pre-program kind of thing, and have went through all of the experiences that we all clearly went through. It's just, if you get this opportunity, just take it. Like, don't, if you, and again, like I had that gut feeling. For me, I had that gut feeling where I was like, this just feels right. I'm finally speaking to someone who has experienced it themselves, which I think is such a big thing. And it's just like,
Yeah.
don't, and I've learned, like, don't wait for what feels like the right time. So like that comes with that overthinking of, oh, I don't feel like, I can invest in this right now, or I don't think I have the time, or how am I going to take care of my daughter? Like, don't ever feel like you're going to feel like it's the right time. It's almost like just do it. It's never going to feel like it's the right time. And just, if you have the opportunity, just go with it. And when you make that decision to go with it, once you're in it, one thing I noticed when I was in the program is I really, when I started focusing on the baby steps, and I wasn't even, honestly, I wasn't even thinking about the outcome. I wasn't thinking about, when is my skin going to look
Yeah.
clear, or how is it going to look when it does, or I stopped thinking about that, and I just got into like the little tiny little baby steps, and I literally was just focusing on that. And once I really started focusing and I was consistent on just focusing on, that's when I saw changes, right? And then I was like, oh my gosh, like here's an outcome that I didn't even expect. That's like my skin and additional things on top of my skin, right? So I think that was a key thing, where it's like before you're in it, it's just, don't wait for the right time and just go with it. And then when you're in it, just focus on your baby steps and you'll get there.
Yes. That's such great advice because everybody comes into the program and they want to do everything at once. And it's hard to tell them to slow down, and we do it every single time. And we like, slower is faster. We say it all the time. But it is when you actually slow down the pace and you focus on what you're doing day to day and you forget about the outcome. Because everybody comes in because they want clear skin and they want to heal their eczema. But that can hold you back too. Because then it's like, okay, I'm in that scramble. I'm feeling a lot of urgency and I need to do all these things. You could burn out, and then you'll be looking at your skin every day and it's not healing overnight, which it's not going to. Yeah. And you're like, it's not healing. All these things pop in your mind. And then, yeah, that can hold you back quite a bit. And I see that quite often.
Yeah,
I've been there
even,
too.
yeah, because
So,
I would look in the mirror all the time, right? And I remember like going to work and I had this little mirror and I had it on my desk and I was looking, and I remember telling Mandy, she's like, "No, put the mirror away. Like, don't look at it." It's like, so I was falling into those things where I was like, I want to see a change tomorrow. Like, I did this, I want to, and then I thought, okay, let me just stop. And then when I really just stopped, and because I got into my daily routines and I enjoyed it and I found things that work for me, it was just, it
yeah.
was just easy to just focus on that and just continue and just like keep doing it every single day and not think about anything else. And then that's when I saw changes.
That's a really good words of wisdom for people that have just started the program, is find something that you enjoy doing. Because otherwise it's going to feel like a chore and you're not going to be consistent, and just keep trying to find different things. And it is like we give you so many tools to try out, and it is really about, but this is why reflecting is really important. Like, what was the impact on your skin and on your body, and how did you feel? And did you enjoy it? And then just continue being
Yeah.
consistent with that. That's the
Yeah.
program for
And,
you.
like with the tapping meditation, which is one of the main things that I really got into, I thought, oh, maybe I'm into this because I was doing the meditation, but I found tapping, I was able to get into it more, maybe because of like I thought, okay, because I dance and there's a choreography to it, that you have to follow. It was like, maybe that's why I'm into it, right? So you really just try different things, and, and just see what works. And if it doesn't work, it's okay. Go to the next thing to try, right?
Yeah. Yeah. Great words of wisdom. All right. Well, thank you, Minnie, so much for sharing some of your big aha moments, what worked for you. I think that will be really impactful for people who were where you were I guess that's a year and a
Yeah.
half now,
Yeah.
ago.
So crazy when you think
Yeah,
about it, but
and it's
yeah.
great. Totally, yeah.
I
Time
know.
flew by. But it's nice just to see how vibrant you are, and I mean, you were always vibrant, but just how much that has changed your life and how passionate you are
Yes.
about those changes from coming from somebody who was
Yes,
quite resistant.
exactly. Yeah. But Alicia, I have to
Yeah.
commend you. Like, honestly, I just find like the way you've set up the program, it's like you think, oh wait, is this gonna work for me? Because like I said, like it's online, like I'm not gonna see you, or it's a group. It feels like you're helping so many people, and how are you gonna you make it work. You totally make it work. And I know you have a team as well, but it like you come up with this thing and just the way you've structured everything, like it's amazing. So thank you so much. You've literally changed my life. So thank
Oh,
you.
thank you. Oh, I mean, like I said before, Minnie, you did all the work.
But you're my guide. You're my guide. I needed
But
that, I needed
yeah,
you. So yeah. So thank you so much.
yeah. Oh, my pleasure. So
I
much
know.
love here. I love it.